Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is that you were tuning in from. I'm grateful that you made it through the censorship and you clicked the play button and you're here to join us this evening. As you all know, if you've been here for a little while, every Friday we get together with our precious metals advisor and kind of sort out some of the conspiracy from the theory. And we chose to do this weekly because it's a never-ending nightmare escape out there, and people need they don't have the time to sift and sort through all of it or ask the questions that get your head bit off. So that's kind of where we spend our time living in that universe. So disseminating theory from conspiracy is kind of in his superpower and in his wheelhouse. The challenge for me is in as a journalist is being the conduit of said truths in a time where there is not a massive amount of positivity out there is uh, trying to not end up becoming part of the noise and to remain being helpful. And the better we become at that, the harder our government abuses us. So until we are able to strike down this abuse of government, we need to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And that means in our universe, finding alternative places to communicate and gather. So there's a couple of places I want to remind you guys. I'm going to be doing this every show, for the next couple of weeks, because things are changing. Again, it's getting dicey out there. After last Saturday's show, I was suspended again on YouTube, a couple of Facebook platforms, removed from Instagram. I think we're back up there tonight, but it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So, preemptive to tomorrow's show, which is part two of the Watch Party series that we're running. Get on over and make sure that you guys get subscribed on Rumble. That is our number one go-to backup, guys. Make sure you get subscribed on there. I appreciate the likes when we do go live. That does help us boost ourselves, up the algorithms. And that's a challenging process being a Canadian content distributor. They don't like to boost us onto their leaderboards very often. So your likes are appreciated, but the subscriptions is what we need to accomplish. So this is going to be kind of a three-part to-do list for everybody. And the next one is make sure that you get onto the email list over at lgm.news. We're test piloting some stuff there, guys. It's going to make it easier for you guys to, you try and send me a link to something that's important and the platform blocks it. There's nothing more frustrating than me going to all of my messages and 100 times a day as attachment not available, cannot read this, cannot open this, yada, yada, yada. So what we're doing is we're creating a portal on there that you guys will be able to drop in your links, give it a priority rating, and that will go into a cast net for all of the platforms that stream on LGM. We will be able to go in there and see. So you'll be able to reach not just me, but all of the content creators on LGM. So that's going to be coming real soon. So I want to make sure you guys get a chance to get plugged in there and get on the email list right now while we are still able to communicate on some of these other platforms. And last but not least, this one is the constant, guys. This is the rock to everything. What's up, Canada? Congratulations. 5 years of speaking truth to power, and still standing. And tomorrow I'm going to be doing a couple of different shows that are, we're going to be doing the watch party, but watch for something random, guys, because I have been under siege literally this week, and I'm going to do something special on that. I'm not going to take any more time away from Bryce and what we're here to do tonight, but running down to the wire here. I think we've got 5 days left on the fundraiser. Look, guys, 52 weeks of the year I am promoting, supporting, and every other group and organization and activism that I can out there. This week it's support Wayne's World and What's Up Canada. I've got some relocation costs coming up, and I've got 5 days to get this sorted out. So there's a couple of ways right on the front on top of What's Up Canada that you can help me defer and offset some of these costs. And we got so much good stuff coming. I don't want to interrupt that, but there will be some interruptions over the next 2 weeks. So tomorrow, 2 shows, one scheduled, one will be kind of random. And after that, we may experience some technical difficulties. But so now, after all of that, we have Mr. Bryce, our precious metals and business conspiracy theorist, analyst extraordinaire. Boy, nothing like putting you on the spot, is there, Bryce?
Hey man, par for the course.
Well, I'm sure that I'm not the only one that puts you on the spot. I'm pretty sure that's where you make your bread and butter. So
Yeah, and it's the structure I actually prefer. I like doing back and forth and discussion and asking questions and talking. I'm actually pretty bad at doing presentations that are like structured and stuff. So I just gotta speak from the heart and say what I say.
well, and that's the thing about um, what I do, what this platform does, is not activism. There's a difference in something that needs to be identified between as a difference between activism and journalism. Activism is 100% biased. Journalism it cannot be biased. People tend to forget the whole reason we lost all trust in all of the legacy news and media is because they became biased. They became impossible of calling out both sides fairly and respectfully. So that's been an uphill battle for us in this space, is being able to be objective and fair, and that isn't always approved by even the people on our side of the fence. And particularly this week, man, I'll tell you what, it's been kind of brutal in my universe, from people that profess to support freedom and all of the things that we fight for, but yet are the first ones to attack and try to censor and control the things that I say and do, and literally resort to extortion. If I don't put their pom poms on, then I will be labeled and branded and shamed in the public space, is what people are trying to do to me here at What's Up Canada. So I'm like really been behind the eight ball on trying to sort of, is this something that is, are we manufacturing our own issues that aren't necessary? And it's just, wow, it's been a crazy week, nothing like your week. But it makes it makes this kind of platform what it is. It's authentic, it's genuine, we speak from the heart with the best information and data that we have available at that point in time. And if I make a mistake, I will be the first one to come back and correct it. But without the
Wow, that's so right
attention
wing
of
of you.
dialogue, uh, what's that?
That's so right wing of you, taking responsibility for your actions. Well, who are you?
I know, right? It's I it, I've got a little video here that is kind of been breaking the internet in the last little while. I don't know. Do you want me to run that first here
Yeah, go for it.
about taking responsibility?
Yeah, go for it.
Because apparently we are not allowed to consider taking responsibility for our own bodies, our own health, our own choice, lest we be deemed mentally unfit. So I got a minute video here that I'm going to play for everybody, and then we're going to dive into some craziness and how this is related to it.
A definite assault against the unvaccinated, and you've talked about how even they recommend, perhaps psychiatric medication or something for people that don't want to take a vaccine?
So this has come out recently out of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. The college sent out a letter or a memo to all the doctors in Ontario suggesting to them, now so far they're not mandating it, they're just suggesting it, that any of their unvaccinated patients, that they should consider that they have a mental problem and that they should be put on psychiatric medication. So far, it's just a suggestion, but the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario should not be making these kinds of suggestions. This is extremely unethical, and this is a very, very slippery slope. If they're suggesting that people who wish to have bodily autonomy and don't want an experimental vaccine, that there may be something mentally wrong with them, that is a very, very dangerous, slippery slope that we're on.
Oh, man, you're so right. I just thank you for your courage. The people of Canada are really appreciative of what you've done.
So that was Dr. Mackis and Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, for those that aren't familiar out there. But this was a case in point of something going from conspiracy theory to being confirmed as fact in mere months. I'd been discussing this with colleagues 6 months ago, that this was setting itself up for that. I think Dr. Trotsy and Michael Alexander and I talked about the precedents that they were establishing and for this. And I'm from the school here now where nothing confirms a conspiracy fact faster than an official denial. And everybody that calls me a conspiracy theorist, I chalk another one up. I think it's Bryce is getting to the point where I want to do a show based just strictly called "Told You So."
Yeah. There's so many, and I think this is a perfect example of we've been screaming about this for a few years now, right? Because I remember right at the beginning of this, they were like, "Hey, it won't be mandatory." Yeah, it was, right? And they're going to deny that, but they're like, "Hey, don't worry about it. Like, if you can still make your own choice, now you can't," right? And if you could bring up my screen here really quick, there's a meme that I that I post a lot that really encapsulates this. So if you think the government has the right to forcibly vaccinate people for the good of society, what is to prevent them from forcibly sterilizing people, forcibly euthanizing people, or forcibly implanting a tracking device for the good of society? And this is absolutely happening. And the thing that one of the many reasons that I oppose MAID for what it is that this is the intention, right? They are putting into place now the structures and ability and legal authority to essentially brand somebody a threat to society for mental illness or have a mental illness by de facto authority. And then you can take that and say, hey, because you're a threat and you have a mental condition, now we can take possession of you and your body and put you in jail or do any of these things on this list legally, right? And the thing that we are now facing, well, we've been facing the whole time, but now it's in the end game stage really, is the unrestricted authority of tyrants, right? Because this is what this is, and this is what the WHO treaty is it gives this unlimited power literally to the WHO to be like, oh, there's a crisis, everybody locked down, you get this, you get that, you do this. Well, what if I don't want to? Well, screw you, you're doing it anyway, or we arrest you, right? That is what the definition of authoritarian tyranny, right? And so this is the end game. And this is why I say, and I'll just finish this point, this is why I say these four things: central bank digital currencies, digital IDs, microchips, and 15-minute cities, right? You have all of those four things. If somebody with the power of the WHO makes a decision, can enforce anything on anyone, because that is the system that controls everything that you do in society.
Well, this is where the World Homicide Organization is running into some serious resistance because they can't put the magic under the carpet again, and people have figured out that the only thing that they're squabbling over is who gets to become the bioweapons arms manufacturing profiteering nations left on the planet. And here we've in Canada, we've got 2 million people lining up for food banks. Our homelessness is in housing rate is being destroyed, and Trudeau still finds $15 million for pathogen tracking and all of these kinds of diabolical things. They're literally, I think it's in third reading in the Senate right now about legislating, mandating jabs. To what degree, I don't know. I need to get an update on that, but they're still trying to force these chemical bioweapons into the people while the companies are on the front line of every international news organization recalling all of their junk and finally being brought into the light about what they're doing to people with this experimental program. And instead of doing anything realistic here in Canada, Trudeau is got is a 1.4 or 1.6 billion investing into AI development, tracking and monitoring of people while deeming us insane. It's in we don't what I'm struggling with is in the resistance to this, we're seeing the same rules of engagement that they wage upon us being implemented in our so-called our side of the fence. And there isn't really an our side of the fence. It's either you're pro humanity or you're pro Borg. That's really, at the end of the day, I cannot make it any more simple than that. And this is what I have to address this. Thanks, Tom. Prime Gold Media, I learned a lesson on what this platform does. And I want to bring this up specifically because there seems to be this giant aversion. Our prime minister has literally obsessed with a meme and a podcasting comic, even if he is in the absolute worst taste. It doesn't matter. Since when does being vulgar and offensive constitute a crime and an obsession by our government that literally stops our country dead in its tracks? And the instant I try to bring a light to highlight that, like, look, guys, our country's been dead on its feet for a week arguing about this kind of stupidity. How many billions does that cost? But I'm the bad guy because I shine a light on this, and this is the danger that I see out there in our side of the so-called fence. That people need to take a pause, a breather, and a reality check, and get back to some facts and a few less emotions. Because holy mackerel, guys, the stuff they got coming down the pipe makes this look like a giant playground zone for kindergartners.
Yeah, 100%. If you could bring up my screen again. So this is our good friend Edward Snowden. When exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you're being ruled by criminals. And here we sit exposing crimes left and right by the government and the people that are running it. And those people are the bad people. Like CSIS literally told Canadians, like, hey, these guys are compromised. And what do? Well, we got to investigate who leaked that information. So like the situation that we're in is dire. And just to give everybody a little bit of an update on kind of the worldly things, there's a lot of stuff happening around the world. I'm not going to go into detail today, but it is really bad. It is getting significantly worse. But I will bring up this one point that everybody should take note of. So this guy's name is Stephen Van Meter. A really good guy that follows the financial world really closely. And so what he's saying in this video, I recommend everybody take a look at it if you want to see it. But what he's essentially saying is all of the elites are starting to dump all of their stocks and bonds, and they're buying out. Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on more cash than they've ever been sitting on, and they're ready to get into the market when it collapses. So I don't think we're very far away from the actual collapse that we've been waiting for actually happening. I would give it. I was hoping that we would make it to the election. I don't know if we will. I don't know if we will make it that far, but I hope that we do. But I don't know if we will. So take that for what it's worth. But I highly recommend that everybody that sees this go and buy food. Please go buy food, because eventually everybody's going to start doing that, and you don't want to be last when there's none left. So go be first so you get some.
Well, and I pulled up a whole bunch of articles and links, and at the end of the day, there's none of it that that our government is doing, the lies that they're telling, what the media is saying. There's, knowing that it's worse than they're talking about, and they are even talking about the collapse of so many different things. And then I do have a couple of quick headlines I do want to bring up here and touch on that are kind of real indicators of kind of what's going on. Last week we talked about BRICS making a huge announcement coming up, and 40 nations were lining up last week to join BRICS. Well, it turns out what that announcement was they are launching a central bank in order to do business in a multipolar capacity, meaning not controlled by the U.S. And the same day as they announced that, Google makes an announcement that they're moving their jobs to BRICS nations. So you don't have to be a highly educated rocket scientist or financier to kind of smell which direction the financial rats are running. And like it or not, there's not, again, not about doom and gloom, but looking at where everybody is going and what their intent is. This is, there's a small runway of opportunity for people to protect themselves, and you're not the only one that is as our interest rates, that maybe you can talk about that a little bit and how that impacts everything. But the currency value of our buying power of our dollar is disappearing by the week at this point. And we're seeing companies backing out of trade and shipping deals because of the exchange currency differential. They don't want to lose money. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and so one of the things to keep in your mind when you think about big economic things, just in general, as a generality, is complexity and chaos is bad. There's opportunity there, but it's bad overall because it disrupts everything. So game theory basically says that if you make a small change in a complex system, the reverberations travel far and have far-reaching consequences. That whole idea of like a butterfly flaps its wings in Japan and creates a tsunami on the other side of the planet or whatever. And the kind of one of the bedrocks of the financial system is T-bills, which are treasury bills in the U.S. That's kind of there's what's called the tier one asset, tier one asset, and that's essentially the underpinning of everything that's in the American-led SWIFT system that they created after Bretton Woods. Right, that took a step down in 1970, but ultimately this is still within the central bank controlled financial system, right? And so they are building a central bank that will be controlled, I'm sure, by the Rothschilds as well. And all of these countries that are currently doing this, they already have central banks, right? So they know, and they are using, and they're aware that if the American dollar is going to collapse, which it is eventually, because we're way into the ending cycle of the currency now, because the oligarchy decided so, because it wasn't necessary for this to happen. It's not necessary for our currency to collapse either. But all of our leaders and all of the policies being implemented are essentially forcing this to happen. So it's not like this is like a surprise to anybody. They're like, how are we going to do this? It's intentional, because you can't be this incompetent. And the barometer for making that statement that I always use is math. If you can't do math, you're an idiot. But if you can do math and you do the math, well, then there's a reason that the math is being done in that way, right? We're like, I'm part of the generation that didn't grow up on Common Core, so I can actually do math, right? And what this is showing us is that this has been intentional through its inception, right? So you had the central banks the pre-US Fed, right? And they controlled all of the old Western money from old Europe, right? When they set up the Fed, and then eventually they set up Bretton Woods to export that to the rest of the planet and use the American military to do so, and to enforce it. Essentially, they put all of these feelers, all of these let's call them suction cups, suction pipes, whatever you want to think of, into all over the planet, right? And they took these resources and used that productivity in the U.S. and the technology that the U.S. was pushing forward on the backs of hardworking Americans, and took a whole bunch of that money into the banking system and into the elites, and eventually they amalgamated, and eventually they did M&As, and so you have this pyramid at the top that just has administration power and ownership of basically everything. Like the vast majority of things on the planet are owned and operated and administered by a small group of people. I call them the oligarchy, right? And what you have now is other groups of people. So they're still in the same kind of crew, but China came up at the behest and the help of the West. So never forget that the rise of China was specifically done by the West, right? The oligarchy made that happen. We knew the entire time for like the last 100 years that the Chinese Communist Party are a bunch of morons, amoral, kill everybody, insane, far left, extremist, insane people, right? And they're like, hey, but you got a lot of labor that's cheap. You want to make a deal? Even though that's bad for us, and even though we're going to move our manufacturing to the other side of the planet so they can make a huge amount of money, sure, let's do that anyway. Why? Oh, because I make more money. Oh, naturally, right? And so what we're coming to now is the end game of all of these, centuries old plans to enslave humanity. And so those four things that I'm talking about, right? I'm not going to repeat them. The four things that I'm talking about is the answer to what's going to happen after the fall, right? Because you can't implement all of these systems with an awake, aware, powerful, self-reliant group of people that doesn't need your stupid bullshit to function, right? You can only implement authoritarian policies like that to people that are desperate, unaware, ignorant, and apathetic, right? And that's where the West has become, not the least of which because all the insane policies that have been implemented for the last 20, 30 years, but because now we've fallen off a cliff. People are just insane now. People can't even point to countries on a map now. They can't even do basic math now, right? So and this is why I'm coming to this point, is that now we're at a point where if you are not among those people that are ignorant, unaware, whatever, and you are aware of what's happening, now it's literally up to you and us on the side of let's work for humanity and let's not be killing each other. But the war is happening, right? This is a war on all of us, right? I'd like to stress that point, is that you have a family, I have a family, everybody here has a family, right? We care about people. We want to work in a community. I don't want to kill people and stuff. Like, why would I want to do that? But if somebody's coming to kill me, well, it's fight or die, bro.
Well, we've gotten into this tit for tat control amongst the elites, and at the end of the day, it's young people that don't know each other that pay the price for the squabbles of old men that do, and we're at that again here now, where that is what they fear the most is John Q. A in North America has the ability to communicate with John Q. B in Timbuk nowhere, and that makes them afraid, because this is exactly how they lose control, and this is what they're so desperate to maintain, and they have absolutely lost control over this problem reaction solution. Their escalation of technology and warfare, manipulating both sides to the middle in order to create the profit zone, has went a step too far when they took the static war and conquest model and tried to make that shift to put it to world scale through economics and pharmakia. They went a step too far too quick, and that entire cabal is coming apart at the seams. Picture something spinning around. The faster it spins, the more it comes apart. The more it comes apart, the faster it spins, and the even more it comes apart. This is literally where their envisioned vision of this one world order under a governing board that is approved by the conquistadors, that's coming apart, and we're literally seeing this. There is no other way to call it but a multipolar world, but call it what you want. It's different syndicates and different territories going through turf wars, because the big dogs are collapsing and they're going to get their piece of turf and control it with this tool that they like or that one that they don't. They'll leave it behind. But that's kind of the birthing of an entire entirely different hegemony out there where people are no longer sucking up to America and saying, okay, if we want to get be in America's good books, we'll say, oh, China, Russia, bad. That's not happening anymore. It's kind of flipping the dial on that, where countries are going, oh, no, China, Russia, good, America, bad. You stink. That's kind of where the world shift is happening, and we need to prepare for that outside of our governmental system, because our governmental system is not going to survive it as it is.
No, and and that choice, that decision. So like, I have been one of the people that have said for years, decades, in fact, about how incompetent and corrupt and destructive the U.S. foreign policy has been for obvious reasons. They destroyed multiple countries, coups. I could go on and on, right? The U.S. has been at war for a long time. But even that being true, the world that we've experienced in the last, half century or so, with the Americans in control, more or less, is infinitely better than like the
100%.
oligarchy or the Chinese Communist Party being in control. That is a horror show that I don't want to live through, and I don't want anybody else to live through it either. And you only have to look as far as what's happening in China now to see that you don't want to live through that. And like, what really pisses me off about the people in the West is they're so stupid. Like, how stupid could you be to be a communist in 2024? Do you have no idea about what happened in history and what you're saying actually means to be against freedom of speech and your ability to own your own body and your body to be the ownership of the government that doesn't care about you? Like, it's the most insane thing. And there's an old quote, right? That history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Well, we're singing the same tune of communism right now in the West, right? And which is why we're on the decline, because these ideas have infected our psyche and our culture to a degree that it is destroying our culture from within, right? And you can't defend a culture if you don't believe in it. And now you have people hating America, hating their skin color, hating everything that it means to be in the West. And like, these people they're just moronic. There's no other word for this. Like, if you don't understand the words and the ideas that you talk about and you espouse, that's on you. And so I have no problem calling people out and calling them stupid for not knowing what the hell you're talking about. Like, anybody that comes to me and says, I support hate speech laws is an idiot.
They know, pity the fools, right? At the end of the day. And if you choose to spend your life and your energy arguing and suffering the fools, the only thing you're going to do is put out your light. That's the only conclusion that's going to happen there. And I see such a shift, in the winds, and maybe it's just because I'm such a hound that my nose is more in tune with those kinds of things. But I'm seeing a cultural shift coming back, where women are fighting back, saying it's okay to be a wife, it's okay to have a life, it's okay to have a family. This isn't mentally insane. And just because I don't agree with you doesn't make me a phobe. It doesn't make me an ist. It doesn't make me a criminal. So we're seeing more and more of a cultural shift for people standing up to that. To varying degrees. You've got the Tates out there, and the Diagolons, and all of those. But at the end of the day, it's people are realizing the impact that this matrix avatar make believe utopia, you can't hide from it anymore. You can't just pretend that it's not going to impact you. And people are saying, nah, I've had enough. I'm just done. And we're seeing people that are starting to make very difficult choices. And in by that I'm saying, I'm going to bring this up here. I've got a story that I guarantee isn't being covered in the news, but he describes it incredibly well, and we this should be on the news. Just bear with me for just a second here. Okay. This is somebody that is finally had enough has nothing left to lose and is calling on reality check to everybody. It's a lawyer in Quebec, has Louis Olivier Fontaine, forgive me on that. I've reached out to him and I'm hoping to have him speak to us because he has just resigned from the Professional Bar Association. And I'm only going to read this. I've got his full statement. I was going to do an article on this, but this is just a heads up for it, guys, that there are people that are doing exceptionally brave things to fight back. So there's a couple of little hopeful things here that you all are going to like, so it's not just going to be all darkness. But I'm going to read this here. During this time, I've borne witness to a misleading narrative presented as unquestionable truth to a population in a state of shock. I'll add trauma. Today, this narrative invoking the existence of a serious threat to the health of the population has taken a judicial notice, meaning that it can no longer be challenged in court. This is important because they let Bonnie Henry off on basically that today. Without any debate, contrary to all logic, and simply because it was repeated ad nauseum, a fraudulent story has become an absolute truth. I use the word fraudulent advisedly because that is exactly what it is. The alleged threat being only a pretext for making profound and potentially irreversible changes in society. These changes were accompanied by a massive transfer of wealth to the ruling class. I cannot overlook the fact that this imaginary threat also served as justification for the deployment of the so-called safe and effective injections, which are linked to the excessive deaths currently observed in Canada and elsewhere. This is a lawyer, and as a lawyer, resigning from the bar and making that statement is an extremely powerful confirmation of everything that everybody has been saying for the last 4 years and more.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a testament to this too, because I know the exact moment that I was like, that's it, and it was the moment at the convoy where Justin Trudeau refused to talk to the protesters. You had people drive across the freaking country in the middle of winter to be like, "Yo, I don't want my rights taken away from me by you, the government, that are unconstitutional," which they have done multiple times, right? And instead of like, "Hey, let's talk," or "Let's hear your gripes," or like whatever, like, no, send in the jackboots, right? And as soon as that happened, I'm like, we don't have a democracy anymore. I'm not represented by this idiot. He's destroying the country, and these policies that are being implemented on our behalf to our detriment, and then spit in our face and told that it's good for us, which is a bold-faced lie. I was like, I've had enough. Like, and I'm sitting here now today because I made that decision. I'm like, that's it. I've had enough of this shit. I want this fixed. And if our elected officials are not going to do it, it's up to us. And that's what real democracy and freedom means, is you have to take the responsibility of what happens in your life, right? And all of these big problems that we talk about, right? They are difficult to do, and you cannot do them alone. But you still have to make the choice that nobody is going to solve this problem for me. I have to be a part of it, and I have to take responsibility, and I'm going to do whatever I can do. Even if it's as small as volunteering for 5 minutes a day or a week or a month or whatever, it literally does not matter at this point. It is something is better than nothing. And I'll drive this point home too, is you have these people, right, that are implementing these policies. They have an agenda that includes people dying. They want people to die, right? You can't say it any other way because the policies that they've implemented prove that. Like, C-63 is an affront to everything that the West stands for. Everything. The number one thing that we care about most is freedom of expression and speech. And they have spit in our face and said, that's over. We're not doing that anymore. As soon as this passes, I can go and look at your history and say, that's hate speech. Who says that? Me. And I'm going to put you in jail forever for that. That is authoritarian and communist. That is literally what China does. They can pull anybody off of the street at any time for any reason and say, you're in jail forever now, and then harvest their organs. That's disgusting, and I'm not going to stand for it.
I just want to briefly address this question so that I can move on. But so
yeah, bring up Don Recordman's.
First is, where did you find the dirt on Bonnie Henry? From Dr. Lee today. I do have a copy, guys, of the Supreme Court verdict today in the case, but we're not going to get into that. I'm going to speak with a lawyer to help us cipher that one, but I did want you to know that it had been released sometime around 11 o'clock this morning. So, which comment from Don Record Man?
The second one, previous to the most recent one behind that.
That one?
Another one before that. Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah, that one. So in 1971, which is when they got off of the gold standard, that establishment would resort to having corporate cartels dictating through the government policy would be. And so this is a good and important point for everybody to realize is the actual power brokers that control everything are the people with money. That's the banks and the corporations that own everything, right? But what the government now is a way to make everything legal, right? That's their job now. So you hire a bunch of lobbyists, which is legalized bribery, be like, hey, this is a thing that we want to do. How are you going to make it legal so that we can do it? Because normally you would have like restrictions involved, like what we used to think of as regulation to prevent bad things from happening to people. Now it's regulation on making sure that bad things don't happen to corporations or the people that own everything or the government or whoever or Pfizer or whatever, right? And so there's been, and this point says it nicely, is that there's been a disconnect from the people and their representatives and what the policies that are being implemented for the people in a given country, right? This has happened in the U.S. and I was saying this yesterday to a friend that the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, is the best document in human history because it enshrines all of our rights in a document that restricts the government's ability to violate them, right? Canada's is basically wet toilet paper at this point with all of the insane nonsense that they're using and putting forth. But I think what it will eventually come to, because all of this stuff is going the way of the dodo bird. Like they are making the situation where all sovereign debts are going to collapse, or all sovereign currencies are going to collapse, so they can implement central bank digital currencies. So if we're going to avoid this, or if we're going to, so there's an option. There's either we stop it and avoid it, or it happens and we have to pick up the pieces afterwards, assuming we survive, which, at this point is debatable. But if we do, we would eventually have to come back to civilization and start this shit again and be like, all right, boys and girls, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it?
I maybe I oversimplify it when I say, we can choose to, go back to the 1960s or back to the Stone Age, but either which way, we're going to be making a choice, and I'm choosing, I would personally choose to go back, only maybe back as far as the 1960s and seat a document for our country that was a little bit more than monopoly board for the rich and the Laurentian elite. And I was kind of astounded to learn that the people, the men that wrote the Constitution of America were all in their 20s and 30s. There was no old men. It wasn't a grappling of the elite of America that wrote that document, and that's ultimately what made it the most powerful document in human history, because it was an evolution of from the Magna Carta of all of the problems. The Magna Carta was, the founding document of democracy and freedom and representation, basically. But, some 500 years later, we have the Constitution, and it has not kept up with the times as well. But it's, fared far better than what we have here in Canada, where we are literally at the behest of a crooked old delusional sycophantic sociopath over in the UK that at the whiff of a finger can invoke the notwithstanding clause, and it doesn't matter what we want here in Canada. It's over and done with. And that is the core root of the problem. And, the more I dig and the deeper I dig, the more, it's time to pull an Iceland. It really is time to pull an Iceland. There is so many pros. And the alternatives, and that's part of the Renaissance thinking rather than revolution. And people, they don't want to do the work; they just want the easy button. Well, the easiest button out there, guys, is to pull an Iceland and write our own damn documents based on the will of the people and eliminate the corrupt.
Yeah, and
The only
that's
way.
what I think it will come down to is we'll have to have a constitutional discussion and reaffirm what it means to be Canadian because we're in Canada. But this goes for every country, right? And I've thought about this before too. Is that how? So let me ask this question to the audience too, and you can post in the chat with what percentage you think this is. Okay, so how many people of a given country or a given community, let's say, because it could be any size, right? So it could be a city or it could be a province or country, or it doesn't really matter the size. So, but how many people, or what percentage of people, rather, in a given area should be able to remove their elected official from power should they want to? One number, right? So 100%, 80%, 50%, 66%, 50 plus one, 30%, however many people got that person in, right? But is there a number that if the group of people, the majority of people in a given area decide that like, yo, this idiot's got to go, they have to abide by that. Otherwise it is a revolution, right? Because then you're essentially saying that the majority of people are being held against their will, right? And I think what it's going to come down to soon is that if we can't force an election this year, which I've got a couple ideas on how we can potentially do that, but I want a referendum. I want a public referendum on firing this idiot, because by every conceivable metric that you can think of, Canada is worse by these retarded policies. Like, they're stupid. They're objectively stupid. Like, they decriminalized heroin and meth and allowed it to be smoked in a hospital. Like, how could you be this stupid and think that you could just get away with it? But we can, and they can, because there are structures in place that enforce that power above us from on high. And we don't have a say in it, right? Because the whole idea, and I've said this before, right? The idea of a democracy is one vote for one person, one voice and one vote for each person or citizen, if it's country specific, right? And if we don't have that, and if we only get to have that once every 4 years at the behest of the people that we're trying to get rid of, I mean, how do we have a democracy if I don't have a voice and I get censored and I don't get a vote on things that matter, and my vote is defrauded in some way, or the system is rigged in some way, right? And so I see a lot of people here. Let me just respond to this. So almost everybody agrees that 50% plus, and this is kind of what I agree with as well, is that 51% basically, if the majority says you're done, right? So we should have a public referendum, a Canada-wide referendum, citizens only, that are able to vote in this. And if we vote as a country to get rid of Justin Trudeau and his moronic clown show communists, they're done. Why do we have to wait until he calls an election when you've unconstitutionally done things? You've worked with the Chinese Communist Party. Your government's guilty of corruption on innumerable amounts of examples. We got scandals up the wazoo. You're destroying the economy. You're like, I go on and on and on, right? But if these are the things that we're dealing with, and the only answer to fix them is to get rid of the idiot that's causing them, well, if we don't have a way to do that, a structure to do that is for the people, what is going on, man?
This is ultimately the conversations that we have to get to, but people our entire society is functioning, or attempting to function from mass-induced trauma and denial, and they're worn out in this psyop on the cognitive capacity of our society has drained everybody so extensively. What I'm concerned with is Canadians getting blindsided in a couple of ways this time around. They think that Pierre is going to save them, and he might buy a little bit of time. But at the end of the day, the powers that be are only going to take his victory as a breathing opportunity and a regroup. But there are other organizations and entities that are moving towards, because they understand the actual jurisdiction of things. What are people going to do when Quebec says separation again? Are they going to say, no, we have to keep Canada alive? Or are the provinces going to go, yeah, it's about damn time? because that is the very different discussion level in Canada from what we had in 1997. And this is going to breed not a dismissed discussion like Wexit was. That was an emotional triggered response. And I didn't agree with it, but I agreed with the discussion because I knew the discussions that it was going to prompt. But I can unequivocally state that in that period of time, in the last number of years, there are groups that have gotten informed, have got the right information, and are moving in the correct process to address the correct jurisdiction, i.e., constitutional conventions. And the part that Canadians don't get is it doesn't matter which province does it, it only takes one, and the rest of them are forced into a conversation that they know absolutely zero about.
Yeah, it's scary, man. And in parallel to all of these discussions that we're having about our own sovereignty and our own government that are incompetent, corrupt morons, right? We're also still facing a actual world war. We're also still facing an actual world famine. Like the amount of problems that we're facing are innumerable, right? And this is why I go back to who's responsible for them. Like, who is the actual person that's like, okay, you're hired and you're supposed to be doing this and you're supposed to be doing that. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Does that make my point?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like, so I'm in BC, right? So John Rustad is the BC Conservatives here. Really good guy. I've talked to him multiple times, and like I'm gunning for us taking the election, us being the new right. And I'll make a comment on that in a sec. But I'm gunning for those people removing the NDP because they're so incompetent, they're so ideologically driven. They don't like these people don't even do math. Like, how can you run a country not doing math? Like it's ideology. I can't stand it anymore. So what that will entail, right? And once that happens, is we have to start upgrading the wheels of government. Like, there has to be a connection between my representative and me. Like, in the internet, like I'm sitting here and like I can read the chat, like I can tell what people think, if people disagree or agree. But why do I need anybody to represent me anymore in the digital world? Like, I can post what I think on Facebook. Why don't I have a digital vote, right, with a digital ID as an example, right? So if that was going to happen, I'm not saying we should do that, but it's just as an example, right? If I had the ability to do that and we all had a digital ID, well, we could vote anybody out in real time. Be like, hey, this guy's an idiot. Get rid of him. Everybody agree? Yeah, vote him out. Done. You know what I mean? Like that is a technical upgrade to democracy. Should it be organized properly and not controlled by the government? But what I'm saying is that the wheels of government, remember, this shit was designed 150 years ago. And they have had a literal century to be like, how do we corrupt this system so that we're in power and we control everything? And, the plebs, i.e. you, me, and everybody else, get screwed. And so they are at the end game of that process where they are about to seize complete control, put a tracking device in your arm and your hand, and control all of your ability to do anything and go anywhere, right? This is the I don't want to call it the final battle, but definitely the penultimate battle of freedom, that if we lose this, we lose forever.
Well, at the end of the day, it comes down to one of my oldest sayings is insanity is unsustainable. And we are getting to that point where it's going to be doing a massive face plant very, very soon.
Yeah.
So we're kind of winding it up here, but there's been some great points raised here, and it's interesting to see. I want to thank Murray for that comment because it was only a year or two ago where had I said something like that on my stream, I would have probably been abused or thrown under the bus for it. But there's people know now. It's not secret information. It's not hidden information. And I want to just pop this up for just a second because here, guys, on my Substack, you have to go and check out this article. There's like 10 points in here that prove that anybody that wants to try and call you a conspiracy nut is absolutely incorrect. So this is if information and truth is a a weapon, guys, that is an arms factory in that post there. So I'm going to drop the link in there on my Substack for everybody to. And I presented it all in such a way as that it's not non-offensive, and it's just facts and truth and information that will help you stand up for yourself and reality. Against the dismissers that want to tell you to put your tinfoil hat back on.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And if I could just add, I'll just finish off on this point because I think it's important. I haven't sent this to you yet because I just watched it the other day, and so I'm just going to bring it up today. So so this is the channel what if this. You can just search for this, the manifesto for the new right. This is a really good video that has a whole bunch of really good ideas in it because, and I've said this before too, is that we have to be united working towards something, not just united in hating somebody. That just doesn't work. You have to, if you have bad stuff over here and like what we're dealing with right now, and we're like, this sucks, we need something better and different. Well, what is that better and different? What are these things that we're going to be working towards, right? Because the only way that you can make meaningful, consistent change is you have to have like a North Star, something that you can put forward and like everybody just agrees that like that is the goal over there somewhere. And then whenever you're making decisions or you're talking and having discussions, you can compare and contrast these decisions that you're making and the ideas that you're talking about. And you ask the question, do these things take us closer to or further from whatever that goal is, right? But if you don't have a goal, we're just pissing into the wind essentially and say, this guy's an idiot, which I agree with, but it's not good enough and it doesn't go far enough to getting us to where we want to be, right? And this video is a really good example of some of the ideas that I think we really need to advocate for. And a couple of the simple one was honor, truth, and I can't remember the third thing, but it was that was what we are for, and in opposition to lies, degeneracy, and I can't remember the third one. But the reason that I bring this up is that I think it's really important because a lot of the people that are on the right now, and I hate being called a right-wing extremist because I'm not. I'm a centrist, right? Ultimately, but they're like freedom of speech is now a right-wing. Yeah, exactly. But like freedom of speech is now a right-wing position. Like the insanity of the left is like. I just can't stand them anymore because they're just so dumb, right? But they've been co-opted by these communist idiots, right? That just don't even understand what the words that they're saying are. Look, I just don't want to feel bad about comments online. So you don't want free speech? Like, you're stupid.
It's deep. It's deep. And at the end of the day, we need to stop giving life to the insane and just continue and focus on the rebuild. I like what you were saying there about that. For me, it's the rule of fives. Is this going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, and scale my priority and energy expense to it appropriately. And that's kind of how we get there. And absolutely our default position is love. If somebody wants to come at you with insane, have them suggest that they seek help, go the other way, run, whatever it takes, but don't crawl into the sandbox of stupid. They will only beat you to death with it. But I did want to close off tonight, guys, with this really cool idea. I hope this pops up. Yeah, everybody can see this. There's a site out there called theylied.ca. It ain't pretty, but I'll tell you what, that is jam-packed full of information. And I've heard from so many people over the last little while that was the website that they became aware of. X, Y, and Z, and they've got this really great idea, and I absolutely just love it, where they've got groups of people running around with sidewalk chalk and laser projectors at night, going to baseball games and hockey games, or just on the sidewalk, and using sidewalk chalk, and putting the website out there, and people are going and checking it out, like to the tune of 500,000 people. So guys, I love this idea. This is proactive engagement. It's non-offensive. It's not permanent. It's not toxic. And chalk is cheap. Chalk is cheap. All right, guys. I love you all. Stay strong. Stay mighty, my fellow hostages.
Stay free.
stay free, and we will see you all next week. And Bryce, I'll make sure that I get the right playouts tonight. And tune in tomorrow, guys. Got some things that are going to blow your minds. Find out part 2 of why I was so heavily smashed and censored like last week. Love you all. Bye for now.
In times of global instability, soaring inflation and massive debt, gold and silver have proven to be unshakable pillars of wealth. New World Precious Metals, based in Calgary, Canada, is a leading international brokerage. We offer an easy, secure and cost-effective platform for investing in gold and silver, including our international wholesale program and registered retirement savings accounts. Protect your money outside traditional banking with our physical precious metals, privately vaulted outside the banking system, at secure, insured exchanges worldwide. Gold and silver have been trusted assets for generations, with current projections indicating high returns. And with unprecedented demand from governments, banks, and investors, there are now shortages. Precious metals thrive during inflation, geopolitical instability, and currency devaluation. Sound familiar? Now is the time to invest in gold and silver, whether in your international investment account or by transferring registered retirement savings accounts. Experience the security of physical precious metals, combining the safety of physical assets with the flexibility of being like your own bank, offering instant liquidity and a financed line of credit. With precious metals on the rise, don't miss this generational opportunity to protect your wealth. At New World Precious Metals, we ensure your wealth meets its potential. Contact us today and our personal brokers will guide you every step of the way.